It's definitely been a struggle. But I think just at the start of the season too, like, you have your start of the season meetings and you're talking. And for us, it was about, listen, like, no matter what happens in the season, it's next woman up and you have to be ready. And I feel like obviously struggling with injuries, and then, you sign people and then they leave, and it's like, listen, like, whoever is next, be ready to play, because it doesn't matter. Like, the games still keep coming. Like, you still have to be ready to compete. And that's why I was so happy, like, when we signed Ari.
The arrival of Caitlin Clark, the generational scorer, the record-shattering phenomenon, the rookie with more buzz than any WNBA player in history. Ticket sales exploded. Road games turned into sellouts. Suddenly, the Indiana Fever, once an afterthought, became the headline team in women's basketball. But behind the highlight reels and the viral social media moments, a different story was unfolding. A story of frustration, a story of growing pains, a story about another young star who suddenly found herself in a completely new spotlight. Aaliyah Boston. Boston, Rookie of the Year, All-Star, Defensive Anchor, Franchise Cornerstone. She was already carrying the weight of expectation when Caitlin Clark arrived. And overnight, everything changed. Recently, Boston sat down with Sue Bird and admitted the truth. The adjustments, the chemistry struggles, the trolls, the pressure. Her honesty peeled back the curtain and revealed a side of the Fever's season fans never truly saw.
I mean, it is. Obviously, you never want people to get injured, but the reality is you have to have that mindset, and it gives other people opportunity. And then you hope ultimately you're all better for it when the injured players come back. But I'm curious, specific to Caitlin being on the floor, off the floor, and I saw you talk on your own podcast about like the spacing and how different it is. But when you're entering a game, like your mental prep, how does it change? Because it's two different systems essentially.
It is. Honestly, like when C is on the floor, I'm like, listen, be ready to run. Be ready to get out. Be ready because she's looking. She's looking.
Going.
She wants to play fast. Super early in the offense. And like we do that too as well here, but I think sometimes too now without her, like we can get into like a little more half court execution, make the defenses work a little bit harder, first side, second side, third side. And then I think when you have like Kelsey, when Kelsey's playing in transition, get that ball up to her and make her
I've never seen anybody so bouncy.
Like
today, we're unpacking it all. From the injuries that derailed momentum, to the media circus, to what it really takes to play alongside Caitlin Clark. This is the untold truth behind Indiana's turbulent season.
So entering year 3 for you, which is this year, as you said, it's a lot of change.
Yes.
You have a coaching change. You have it's a big free agency year for you guys. And really overnight, what that big free agency year was, or big change was expectations change.
Yes.
So you guys went from like this up and coming, where it's like you're getting to know each other, to now it's like, oh, they could win the whole thing.
Yeah.
So what was the experience of essentially becoming like, instead of being the hunter, you're now the hunted?
Yeah, it's crazy, but I feel like it was definitely expected. Like, I think number one, like just last year, everyone, like when they see our name on the schedule, even though the year before we didn't win, like we won 13 games or whatever it was. And it was like, okay, well, but then you added in Caitlin, right? And everybody's like, oh, like they're going to be this, and this. And now everybody's like, oh, you know what? We're going to prove you wrong. Like, hell no. Like that's how it is.
Let's start here. The Fever season wasn't normal. It wasn't just the hype. It wasn't just the new star. It was the chaos. From day one, injuries wrecked the rhythm. Clark had her share of bumps and bruises, but it wasn't just her. Key rotation players missed games. Starters sat out. And then came Debbie's departure. One player leaving doesn't always make headlines, but inside a fragile locker room, it meant everything. The Fever needed time to build chemistry, representatives, trust, continuity. Instead, every time they started to gel, the lineup shifted again. Fans expect instant results, but players know better. Basketball is timing, precision, repetition, and Indiana never had the luxury. Here's what's remarkable. The Fever didn't quit. Inside the locker room, a new mantra took root. Next woman up. Someone goes down, someone else steps in. No excuses, no time to sulk. That's why Ari's arrival mattered so much. She wasn't just another body filling minutes. She was calm, steady, reliable. When everything else felt unstable, Ari brought balance. And Aliyah Boston noticed. She even said Ari gave them something priceless: stability. That's the kind of impact fans don't always notice, but players feel immediately.
and everybody's like, yeah, like they got, for us, we always think like you have to approach every season with like, we're winning this whole season. So that was our mindset. And I think when you look at expectations, once again, expectations come from everyone outside. Cause like in our circle, we know exactly what we want to do. We also understand that it's a process. We understand that new faces, new coaches, like different style play for people joining us. It's like people need time to figure it out once again. But when you do figure it out, it's going to be scary. And I feel like that's what it was for us. And that was our approach. And we're still like, listen, we are coming here to win this thing. Like that's what it is. And that's not going to change no matter what, because
now we get to the heart of it. When Boston sat down with Sue Bird, she didn't dodge the tough questions. She admitted what few dared to say out loud. Playing with Caitlin Clark changes everything. Boston explained that Clark isn't just a scorer. She's not just a shooter. She's a tempo shifter, a pace setter. When Caitlin's on the court, the Fever have to run. Not jog, not wait, run. Clark sees plays before they happen. She throws passes to spaces where teammates should be, not where they are. And if you're not ready, the ball is flying out of bounds. Boston summed it up. Indiana plays two different styles of basketball. With Clark, lightning fast, run and gun, high-octane transition. Without Clark, slower, half-court execution, deliberate sets. Both systems can work, but learning both at once? That's hard. Think about it. Most teams spend an entire season mastering one identity. The Fever had to master two. When Clark's in, sprint lanes, keep your head up, expect the ball at any moment. When she's out, screens, post-ups, patience. It's like learning two languages simultaneously. Boston admitted it was a challenge, but also a gift. Because if they ever blend the two styles together, they'll be unstoppable. Here's where the pressure explodes. The Caitlin Clark effect isn't just about basketball, it's about the microscope. Before Clark, Indiana games were background noise. After Clark, they became primetime events. Every turnover became a meme. Every bad possession turned into a trending clip. Boston explained the weight of it. A missed pass wasn't just a mistake. It was suddenly proof that she couldn't play with Caitlin. The trolls piled on, night after night, calling her the worst big ever. Imagine that, a Rookie of the Year, an All-Star, labeled a liability because chemistry wasn't perfect in month one. That's the cruelty of the spotlight. Boston reminded people of something important. Chemistry takes time. Look at NBA history. LeBron James and Dwyane Wade, they needed months before figuring out crunch time. Kevin Durant joining Golden State, even with Steph and Klay, there were growing pains. So why do fans expect Caitlin and Aaliyah to click instantly? Boston admitted the early games were rough. Misreads, missteps, missed timing. But then, progress. She started recognizing Clark's signals, the tilt of her head, the angle of her feet, the flicker of her eyes. Now Boston said she can anticipate the pass before it leaves Caitlin's hands. That's growth no box score can capture. But critics don't see growth, they see mistakes. And mistakes go viral. Boston admitted the hate is draining, but she also said something powerful. She uses it as fuel. Because trolls don't define her. Her resume does. Rookie of the Year, All-Star, defensive anchor. She's not a liability. She's a foundation. And Clark knows it too. Here's the most telling part. Boston didn't throw shade. She didn't deflect blame. She praised Caitlin, called her a phenomenal passer. She acknowledged Clark's vision is on another level, and she reminded people, the Fever are still learning. Chemistry takes time, and when it finally clicks, Indiana will be a problem. To understand her strength, you have to know her roots. Boston grew up in St. Thomas. No elite gyms, no training academies. She played outdoors, against boys, on rough courts where toughness was survival. Every basket was a fight. That's why she doesn't crumble now. Pressure doesn't scare her, it motivates her. Now flip the lens. Clark's rise wasn't normal either. At Iowa, she shattered records. She turned arenas into sold-out concerts. She made people who never watched women's basketball tune in. By the time she declared for the WNBA draft, she wasn't just a star, she was a phenomenon. And with that came unrealistic expectations. Fans thought she'd walk into Indiana and immediately transform them into contenders. But the WNBA isn't college. It's faster, tougher, smarter. Even legends struggled as rookies. Clark was learning that in real time, while the world expected perfection. Boston knows that pressure too. She was the #1 pick herself. And history shows No top pick comes in and dominates instantly. Diana Taurasi, Maya Moore, Brianna Stewart, they all needed time. Boston and Clark's pairing isn't unusual. What's unusual is the attention. 2 number 1 picks, back-to-back years, on the same roster. That's rare. That's pressure. But it's also opportunity. Inside the Fever locker room, the story is different than the one fans see. It's not Boston versus Clark, it's Boston with Clark, the vocal rookie guard, the steady big. 2 young leaders figuring out how to share the stage. Veterans in the room help bridge the gap. They remind the young stars the journey takes time, and slowly the Fever are finding their balance. Here's the final twist. The biggest battle isn't on the court, it's in the narrative. The media loves drama, rivalries, conflict, so when Clark and Boston miss a connection, it's painted as dysfunction, when in reality, it's just part of the process. The truth is less dramatic, but more powerful. They're building something. So what happens next? If Indiana figures it out, if Clark and Boston fully click, the Fever could become contenders within 2 years. Boston's message is clear: patience, growth, team first. Clark may draw the headlines, but inside the locker room, the mentality is different. It's not about one star, it's about building a dynasty. And when it comes together, the Indiana Fever won't just meet expectations, they'll exceed them and change the future of the WNBA. So, what have we learned from the chaos of this past season? That the spotlight can be cruel, that talent isn't enough without trust, that a team is only as strong as its foundation. The Indiana Fever's 2024 season wasn't a fairy tale. It was a pressure cooker. It was a trial by fire. But for Aliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark, it was also a masterclass in resilience. They weathered the storms, the injuries, the media circus, the online hate, and they came out stronger. They learned to communicate not just with words, but with a shared understanding of the game. They learned to anticipate, to adjust, to trust that the other player would be where she needed to be. The chemistry isn't perfect yet, but the seeds have been planted. The roots are beginning to take hold. This isn't just a story about 2 stars trying to coexist. It's a story about a team learning to win. It's about a franchise building something from the ground up with the whole world watching. The expectations won't go away. But next season, the script will be different. The chaos will be replaced with rhythm. The growing pains will become a distant memory. Because the Fever now know the truth. They know what it takes to survive the spotlight, and they know what it takes to build a dynasty. The fairy tale wasn't this season. The fairy tale is what's coming next. But beyond the basketball, another story is unfolding. A story about 2 young women who were thrown into the fire and found a way to trust each other. Aliyah Boston, the quiet leader, and Caitlin Clark, the vocal superstar. In a world that wanted to pit them against each other, they chose to connect. They chose to build a partnership based on respect. Think about the moment we all saw it. The late game passes, the high fives after a good defensive stop, the quick huddle to talk strategy. These weren't just plays, they were conversations. They were small moments of grace in a season full of turbulence. This is the most powerful part of the story. It's not just about winning championships, it's about forging a bond. The Fever's future isn't just built on talent, it's built on a friendship that's growing stronger every day. Because when the noise fades and the season is over, what remains is the connection between 2 players who chose to have each other's backs. And that's the kind of foundation no amount of pressure can ever break. So, as we look to the future, the narrative changes. It's no longer about whether the Fever can handle the pressure. It's about how far their potential can take them. Imagine this: a healthy roster, a full off-season of practice, a year of shared experience under their belts. The playbook becomes more complex. The on-court chemistry becomes intuitive. The 2-woman game between Clark and Boston becomes unstoppable. This is the team the world was promised, not the one that struggled to find its footing, but the one that learned from its stumbles. This is the next chapter, the one where the fairy tale finally begins. The fairy tale doesn't start with a glass slipper. It starts with a grind, with sweat and sacrifice, with a team that believes in its potential even when no one else does. This is the season when the pieces fall into place. Suddenly, the passes aren't just accurate, they're telepathic. Caitlin Clark is hitting Aliyah Boston in stride, leading her perfectly into the paint for a seamless layup. Boston, in turn, is setting screens that aren't just solid, they're bone-crushing, freeing Clark for open threes. The two-woman game isn't a challenge anymore. It's a weapon. The frantic pace that once caused turnovers now creates chaos for their opponents. They become a blur of motion, with Clark's vision and Boston's finishing power making every possession a threat. The deliberate half-court sets aren't a fallback plan. They're a deliberate change of pace, a way to punish teams that can't keep up with their versatility. The locker room, once a place of fragile continuity, becomes a fortress of confidence. They've been through the fire, they've heard the noise, and they know that none of it matters now. All that matters is the work. This isn't just about winning games. It's about building a machine, an unstoppable, relentless force built on the foundation of two young stars who found a way to become one.